All right, let's dive into Freemasonry today.
Oh, I'm excited for this one.
You sent over some really interesting sources, like historical records, even some controversial stuff.
Yes.
It's like we're walking into a library
Yeah.
where the books are whispering secrets, you know?
It really is. There are so many books.
Yeah.
So many theories about Freemasonry.
Right.
A history spanning centuries, I mean.
It's wild.
It's no wonder people are still so fascinated by it.
Absolutely. That's why this deep dive is going to be so exciting.
Yeah.
We're going to peel back all these layers, try to understand the appeal, the controversy.
Yeah, the first thing we should probably address is that term.
Okay.
Secret society,
Right.
which is what so many people call Freemasonry.
Right.
But, what's really interesting is that Masons themselves, they actually prefer the term R.
Okay.
Esoteric society.
Esoteric society.
Like, they're acknowledging they have secrets, but they aren't necessarily hiding the fact that they exist, you know?
It's a subtle distinction, but
Yes.
it raises a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Why be secretive at all?
Especially in societies like ours, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're supposed to be all about openness and transparency.
One of the sources mentions that Masons will use phrases like,
Oh, yeah.
like, are you on the square?
Right. To identify each other.
It's very cloak and dagger.
It's like a spy thriller.
Right.
I've read some theories that it's about preserving tradition,
Okay.
creating that sense of exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
But others think it's about,
Okay.
more about controlling information,
Right.
maintaining those power dynamics.
Yeah, because the more exclusive
Oh, absolutely.
a group is, the more allure it has, I think.
Right.
That power dynamic is really interesting because our source, they highlight
Yeah.
this long list of world leaders
Yes.
who were and are Masons.
Kings, presidents, military leaders.
Crazy. But at the same time,
Yeah.
we see that Freemasonry, it faces opposition from various religious groups.
Yeah. The Catholic Church, Mormons,
Yeah.
Salvation Army,
Wow.
even the Methodist Church.
That's kind of a head scratcher.
It is.
How can you have an organization with so many powerful figures and simultaneously be condemned by these religious institutions?
Well, one possible explanation is that Freemasonry,
Yeah.
it really emphasizes reason,
Okay.
individual enlightenment.
Okay.
And those ideas, they can clash with religious doctrines
Right.
that prioritized faith,
Yeah.
obedience.
Okay.
Remember, the Enlightenment was all about questioning authority.
Okay, so you're saying
Yeah.
that Freemasonry, with its emphasis on reason, could almost be seen as a threat.
To those institutions, absolutely.
Like a philosophical tug of war.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And that tension might help explain why, despite its prominent members, Freemasonry has often been a target of suspicion and criticism.
It makes you wonder now, one of the sources you sent takes a particularly controversial stance.
Okay.
The author, John Coleman, he argues that Freemasonry, it isn't just incompatible with Christianity,
Okay.
but that it's actually a Luciferian cult
Okay.
that's seeking to overthrow Christianity
Wow.
and establish a new world order.
Okay.
He even says
Yeah.
that the Bible and cross that are displayed in Masonic temples
Yeah.
are tools of deception,
Wow.
that they're used for ridicule in the higher degrees.
Coleman's claims are, there's certainly attention grabbing,
Yeah.
but it's important to remember that his interpretation
Right.
is just one perspective.
Okay.
And a very controversial one.
Yeah.
I mean, while some Masonic rituals might use symbols in ways that could be misconstrued, I think it's important to avoid jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, he described some pretty chilling rituals from the higher degrees of Freemasonry, specifically the 25th and 30th,
Right.
which he claims involved the worship of Lucifer.
That's a pretty serious accusation.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it really highlights the challenge of interpreting symbolism, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, symbols can be so powerful.
Yeah.
They can have multiple layers,
Right.
What might seem sinister to an outsider
Yeah.
could have a completely different meaning
Right.
within the context of a ritual or tradition.
It's like trying to translate a language
Exactly.
without any of the cultural nuances.
You got it. We can't just take Coleman's interpretation
Right.
at face value.
Okay.
We have to consider other perspectives,
Okay.
the historical context, and even the potential for misinterpretations
Yep.
based on incomplete information.
So while we're acknowledging these controversial claims,
Yes.
it's important to kind of go a little bit deeper. Explore the full spectrum of interpretations.
Absolutely.
Historical evidence before
Yes.
we form any conclusions.
You got it. It's easy to get caught up in those sensational claims, especially when it comes to something as mysterious and secretive as Freemasonry.
It's mysterious.
But our job
Yeah.
is to sift through all that speculation and find the historical and philosophical underpinnings that make this organization so fascinating and enduring.
Okay. Now, Coleman doesn't just stop at ritual interpretations.
Right.
He attributes major historical events.
Oh, wow.
Like revolutions, assassinations, even the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank to the clandestine influence of Freemasonry.
He's weaving quite a narrative, isn't he?
He is.
It's like this powerful, hidden hand shaping world events.
Right.
But we have to remember,
Yeah.
correlation doesn't equal causation.
It doesn't.
Just because some prominent people were Masons, it doesn't automatically mean the organization orchestrated those events.
Right.
We really have to analyze historical evidence carefully
Yeah.
and consider all the other contributing factors.
It's a bit like saying
Yeah.
everyone who drinks water
Yeah.
will eventually die, so therefore water is fatal.
That's a good one.
It ignores all those other crucial variables.
You got it. I mean, when we talk about the French Revolution,
Right.
the assassination of Lincoln,
Such complex events.
there are just countless social, political, economic factors at play.
To attribute them solely to Freemasonry without solid evidence is
It's just not right.
not intellectually honest.
Yeah.
So while we can acknowledge that secret societies can influence historical events, it's important to critically examine those claims.
Of course.
Not fall into the trap of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So let's look at some specific claims that Coleman makes
Okay.
about Freemasonry's alleged connection to these historical events.
We'll see that.
One of the most striking examples he uses is the French Revolution. He claims that Freemasons were instrumental in orchestrating the overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of a secular republic.
He does. And he points to the fact that many prominent figures in the revolution, like Marquis de Lafayette, were indeed Freemasons.
It's true.
Yeah.
Lafayette and other revolutionaries, they were Masons.
They were.
But to say they acted solely on behalf of the organization is a little bit of a...
It is a bit of a stretch. I mean, remember, the French Revolution was driven by widespread social and economic inequality.
Yeah.
You had this burgeoning middle class demanding more rights, and you had a monarchy that was increasingly out of touch.
With the needs of its people.
Exactly.
So while some Masons might have participated in the revolution, to attribute the entire event to Freemasonry just ignores the complex web of factors
You got it.
that led to such a dramatic upheaval.
You have to look at the bigger picture, right? The historical context, the motivations of individuals, the events that all came together to result in the French Revolution.
Okay, let's move on to another example Coleman provides. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
He claims that Lincoln was targeted by a Masonic conspiracy because he opposed their goals.
You know what? That's a claim that just doesn't really hold up.
Okay.
While John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln's assassin, was briefly associated.
With a fringe Masonic group. There's no evidence to suggest that the assassination was an actual Masonic plot.
A sanctioned Masonic plot.
In fact, many Masons at the time, including some really prominent figures, were staunch supporters of Lincoln and the Union cause.
So again, we're seeing correlation misinterpreted as causation.
Exactly.
Just because the assassin had this very loose connection to Freemasonry doesn't mean the whole organization was behind it.
You can't make that leap.
We need to be cautious.
Absolutely.
Attributing an individual's actions to a whole group.
Especially when dealing with such complex historical events.
Seems like Coleman's kind of cherry-picking examples.
Fit his narrative.
He fit his narrative of a shadowy Masonic conspiracy controlling world events.
It's important to be aware of
the author's bias and agenda.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, in Coleman's case, he's clearly anti-Masonic.
Right.
So that's very likely influencing his interpretation of these historical events.
So how do we navigate these complex claims?
That's the question.
And not fall prey to misinformation.
Yeah.
It's like we need to be...
Well, we need to be critical thinkers.
Part historian, part detective.
Yes.
To disentangle fact from fiction.
You got it. We need to really scrutinize the evidence.
Yeah.
Consider the source's bias.
Yeah.
And always look for those multiple perspectives before we form our own conclusions.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at Coleman's claims about the Federal Reserve Bank.
All right.
He alleges that the creation of the Federal Reserve was a Masonic scheme to control the world's finances.
Wow.
And he bases this on the fact that some of the people involved in establishing the Federal Reserve were, in fact, Freemasons.
He does. But isn't that the same flawed logic?
It is, isn't it?
We were just talking about.
Yeah.
Just because some people were Masons doesn't automatically mean the entire organization orchestrated this huge event.
The establishment of the Federal Reserve was this complex process, right?
It was.
With a lot of political and economic interests involved.
It was a response to a series of financial panics. And debates about how to best manage the nation's monetary system.
Right. So attributing the creation of the Federal Reserve solely to Freemasonry is a vast oversimplification.
It is.
That ignores all of the
historical context.
Yeah, the historical context.
It's important to remember that history is rarely just a simple story, you know?
Right.
Of good versus evil.
Yeah.
Or one organization controlling everything.
It's a tapestry.
It is. It really is.
Of individual actions. Societal forces.
Absolute.
Unforeseen events.
Woven together.
Okay, I think we've sufficiently...
I think so, too.
...unpacked Coleman's claims.
Yes.
About historical events.
Let's shift gears a bit.
Let's shift gears.
And explore another controversial aspect he highlights.
Okay.
This alleged Luciferian nature of Freemasonry.
This is where things get...
This is where it gets really sensitive.
Sensitive.
And we need to be nuanced.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to get lost in speculation.
Right.
And sensationalism.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think our goal here is to approach this with intellectual honesty.
Yes.
Respect for all these different perspectives.
Absolutely. So Coleman claims that Freemasonry, despite its outward claims of compatibility with all religions, is fundamentally incompatible with Christianity. And he cites specific prayer and rituals from these Masonic degrees that contradict Christian teachings.
He does. One example he gives is the concept of the great architect of the universe, which is often referenced in those Masonic teachings. Now, this figure is generally seen as a representation of a higher power, but it's not explicitly defined as the Christian God.
So is that what Coleman is interpreting as evidence of a Luciferian belief system?
That's exactly it. That's how he interprets it.
Okay.
But a lot of Masons and scholars, they argue that the great architect of the universe is meant to be this inclusive concept, you know, allowing individuals from all these different faith backgrounds to participate in the fraternity without compromising their own beliefs.
So it's almost like this common denominator that allows for diverse religious interpretations.
Yeah, you got it. But
but then wouldn't that clash?
Well, it does raise questions, about the boundaries. Between religious tolerance and sticking to specific doctrines. This tension might explain why. Some religious institutions have historically opposed Freemasonry.
So they're trying to navigate this balance between individual freedom of belief and the tenets of organized religion.
It highlights the complexities of faith in a pluralistic society.
It does.
Now, before we go any further, into the alleged Luciferian elements of Freemasonry. Let's take a step back for a second and look at this concept of religious syncretism.
So what is religious syncretism?
Well, it's basically the blending of different religious beliefs and practices, throughout history. Various religions have incorporated elements from other faiths.
Interesting.
Sometimes intentionally, sometimes through just cultural exchange.
Okay, so you're saying Freemasonry could be seen
as an example of this.
Yeah,
it's possible. I mean, Freemasonry, with its focus on symbolism and universal truths, it could be seen as this attempt to find common ground between different faiths.
Interesting.
But as we've seen with Coleman's claims, this syncretic approach can also lead to those accusations of heresy and incompatibility with certain religious doctrines.
It's like walking a tightrope between being inclusive and exclusive.
It is.
Appealing to this broad audience while also potentially alienating those with stricter religious beliefs.
That tension is at the heart of so much controversy.
It is.
Surrounding Freemasonry.
It is.
So let's dig a little deeper into these rituals and symbols that Coleman interprets as Luciferian and see if we can find some alternative interpretations from Masonic scholars and historians.
Yeah, let's unpack those elements. And try to figure out fact from fiction.
Right, you got it.
Speculation from substantiated claims.
So one of the rituals Coleman talks about is the blindfolds during initiation ceremonies.
Oh, yeah.
Right. He thinks they're a symbol of Masonic deception and control.
Right.
But it's true that blindfolds are used in some Masonic rituals.
Yeah.
But their meaning is so much more nuanced than Coleman suggests. In Masonic tradition, that blindfold represents the initiate's symbolic journey from darkness to light, ignorance, to knowledge. It's this metaphorical representation of spiritual enlightenment.
So rather than deception, it's more about...
It's a spiritual awakening.
Spiritual awakening.
The blindfold symbolizes that initial state of ignorance, right? Before they receive the teachings. And then they're brought into the light of understanding.
It's almost like the allegory of the cave, right?
That's a great analogy.
Where the individuals are trapped in this world of shadows.
Yes.
Until they are brought into the light of truth.
It highlights that symbolic nature of Masonic rituals and how important interpretation is.
What about the oaths?
And
penalties.
All right.
That are such a central part of Masonic tradition.
Coleman portrays those as sinister tools of control and intimidation. He even claims that breaking them can lead to
gruesome punishments.
Yeah. Those oaths and penalties are they're definitely a controversial aspect of Freemasonry. They do represent a serious commitment to the fraternity and its principles. But how people interpret them has evolved over time. I mean, historically, some of the oaths did include these symbolic punishments. But they weren't meant to be taken literally.
So it was more about...
It was about the seriousness of the commitment. The weight of that promise. Not the actual threat of punishment. The oaths are about loyalty. Secrecy. Upholding Masonic values. And the penalties. While historically, quite dramatic. They're mostly symbolic. To underscore how important that commitment is.
It's like signing a contract. You're not expecting to be physically harmed.
Exactly.
If you break it. But you do understand the implications of violating the agreement.
Exactly. The Masonic oaths are about holding yourself to this high standard of conduct and upholding the principles of the fraternity. And it's worth noting that. Freemasonry has evolved, right? I mean, many modern lodges have moved away from those more dramatic symbolic punishments.
There was a difference between
There is.
The historical practices and
yes,
the modern interpretations.
Absolutely. Freemasonry is not static.
Right.
It has adapted over time to reflect those changing societal norms.
Like any long-standing
exactly.
tradition or institution.
You got it.
Undergoes transformations, reinterpretations.
It has to navigate the changing currents of history.
And understanding that evolution is important to avoid those sweeping generalizations.
Yeah, and recognizing the nuances.
The nuances
within Freemasonry.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's address one more element.
Let's do it.
That Coleman highlights.
Okay.
The alleged connections.
Okay.
Between Freemasonry and
host speaker. It's funny how we keep coming back to this idea of this tension, right? Between secrecy and transparency.
Right.
Like the allure of the unknown versus, the need to really look at things critically.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
Like that mystique that fuels all the speculation and controversy.
And it makes it so hard to figure out what's actually...
what's real,
Yeah, what's real.
We have to remember... our perceptions are shaped by the information that's available to us.
Exactly.
So when we're talking about a society that intentionally keeps secrets, it's easy to fill in the gaps with speculation.
With our own projections even, right?
Yeah. It's almost like staring at one of those abstract paintings,
Yeah.
Everyone sees something different.
That's a great way to put it.
Based on their experiences.
Absolutely.
And their interpretations.
And that brings us back to Coleman.
Yeah.
And his whole thing about Freemasonry's Luciferian nature.
Right. He's very focused.
He really is.
On the symbols.
Yeah.
And rituals.
And he interprets them as devil worship.
One of the examples that he gives is, the compass and square.
Right.
Which are probably the most
recognizable symbol.
Associated with Freemasonry.
And he claims that they represent Lucifer's rebellion.
Right, against God.
Against God.
It's
a very specific and controversial interpretation within Freemasonry. The compass and square, they traditionally seen as symbols of morality and virtue.
So the compass represents like the boundaries.
The boundaries of one's action.
Of your actions.
Yeah.
And then the square represents...
fairness and righteousness.
So again, it seems to be...
all about perspective, right?
Perspective, yeah.
And context.
What might be sinister to,
to an outsider.
To an outside. Has a completely different meaning.
Within their tradition.
Okay.
It's like trying to understand a poem by only looking at individual words.
Yeah.
You're not considering the whole...
Right, like the overall structure.
Exactly.
The metaphors.
Yes.
The intended meaning.
That's a great point.
Coleman also mentions the all-seeing eye.
Right.
Which, again, very prominent.
It's a prominent symbol.
In Freemasonry, he claims it's...
that it represents Lucifer's watchful gaze.
Yeah, watchful gaze.
Over humanity.
That humanity.
It's a symbol with a rich history.
Right.
That predates Freemasonry.
Right.
It's been used in so many cultures and religions.
To represent...
divine providence, omniscience.
Okay.
Spiritual awakening.
Okay.
And within Freemasonry, it typically symbolizes the watchful care of a higher power.
Right.
Often referred to as the great architect of the universe.
So once again, we see...
another symbol with these multiple layers of meaning.
Right. Depends on the context.
The context and the interpretation.
The interpretation. We really need to avoid...
those simplistic
interpretations.
Yes.
Because these symbols can have...
they can have all these different meanings.
Depending on...
the time period, the culture, the specific tradition in which they're used.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit.
Shift gears and talk about Freemasonry's impact on society beyond all these controversial claims.
Yeah, one of the sources mentions their significant philanthropic activities.
That's something that's often overlooked, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, throughout history, Masons have been very involved in charity work, supporting hospitals, orphanages, educational institutions, community initiatives.
Well, it's almost like
Like there's this whole other side to them.
Oh, right, this humanitarian side that kind of gets overshadowed.
It does.
By all the focus on the secrecy and conspiracy.
At its core, Freemasonry emphasizes those moral principles like brotherly love, relief, and truth.
Okay.
Those values are reflected in their charitable work and community involvement.
Yeah, it really reminds us that we have to look deeper beyond the surface, to consider everything about an organization before we judge. Yeah,
we need to see the complete picture.
The complete picture.
Not just the parts that fit a particular narrative or agenda.
Okay, so let's talk about...
Let's dive into the structure.
The structure of Freemasonry.
Yeah, it's not one big thing, right?
Right.
It's this complex network of lodges, degrees, with all their own rituals and traditions.
Okay, so how is it organized?
Well, it's structured hierarchically with a system of degrees that members can progress through.
Right.
So the first 3 degrees entered apprentice, fellow craft, and Master Mason.
Okay.
Those form the foundation. Of Masonic membership.
Okay.
And each degree involves these specific rituals and teachings, moral lessons.
So almost like a journey.
Yeah, you could say that.
Of self-improvement.
Yeah.
And spiritual enlightenment.
It's one way to look at it. The degrees are designed to really challenge members intellectually and morally, encouraging them to,
live by those principles.
Apply Masonic principles and contribute to society.
What about those higher degrees?
Okay.
That Coleman is... he seems so focused on.
Yeah, he says those are where...
Right, the true nature...
The true sinister nature...
Freemasonry is revealed.
Those higher degrees, they vary in number and structure depending on the jurisdiction, but they often delve a lot deeper into the Masonic symbolism, history, and philosophy.
They give members
more opportunities to engage. With the fraternity. And expand their knowledge.
So they're not necessarily...
They're not sinister or exclusive. They're just kind of...
It's good to
an extension of those core teachings.
Okay.
I mean, I know some of those rituals and symbols in the higher degrees, they can seem arcane or unsettling.
To people outside.
To outsiders, yes. Yeah. But Masons usually interpret them as allegorical representations of moral and spiritual principles.
So it's like an advanced course.
Yeah, you could say that.
For those who really want to go deeper into the
philosophy and symbolism.
And
that's a good way to think about it.
Of Freemasonry.
Now, it's important to note those higher degrees, they're not like a secret society. Within a secret society.
Right.
Like some conspiracy theories suggest it's not about uncovering this hidden agenda or sinister plot.
Yeah, it's more about...
It's about
deepening your understanding. And commitment to the fraternity.
Exactly. The emphasis is on self-improvement, moral conduct, contributing to society.
So it's interesting because Coleman paints this picture of a shadowy organization with a hidden agenda.
That's this agenda.
But the reality seems
much more complex,
more nuanced. Our complex organizations, like people, can be multifaceted. Freemasonry with its
long and intricate history.
Its
mix of secrecy and philanthropy, the symbolism, the moral teachings. It's hard to categorize.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good reminder that we need to be cautious
of that black and white thinking.
Yeah, the black and white thinking.
And embrace the shades of gray that make things so interesting. Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's just pause for a second. I want you to think about this. If you were to design a secret society, what would its purpose be?
What values would it uphold? What rituals and symbols would you incorporate?
Wow, it makes you think.
It does.
About like why people would want to be part of these secret groups.
It's the impulse to form secret societies. I mean, it's fascinating.
It is.
It really is.
To create these groups with shared values.
Shared values.
Rituals.
It's a very human thing.
It is a human thing, yeah.
I mean, look throughout history. You see all these examples.
Right.
Secret societies popping up in every culture.
Religious brotherhoods.
Religious brotherhoods, trade guilds.
Right.
Even political revolutionaries.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
We all kind of crave that
Yeah.
feeling of belonging, you know?
A sense of purpose.
Purpose.
Yeah. Something that sets us apart.
Yeah, sets us apart.
From the ordinary.
Especially in a world that feels...
That feels so chaotic.
Chaotic.
Uncertain.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
That allure of a secret society.
Yeah.
The rituals, the symbols.
It's very powerful.
Those shared beliefs.
It can be powerful, yeah.
Yeah.
But it also makes me think about, transparency.
Of course.
Accountability.
That's a good point.
If a group is operating in secrecy, it's natural.
It is.
For people to be suspicious.
Absolutely. To speculate.
I mean, that's where the ethical considerations come in, right?
Right.
Yeah, the line between,
yeah,
secrecy that's harmless. And activities that could be harmful.
Right.
It's not always clear.
It can be blurry. Yeah.
It can be. It really can.
It's like that saying,
yeah,
power corrupts.
Power corrupts. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So whether it's...
Doesn't matter.
If it's a government.
A corporation.
Or even a secret society.
Any group.
Yeah.
The potential for abuse is there.
Yeah.
If there's no transparency.
Right, and that's
why... Critical thinking.
So important.
You can't just take everything at face value.
Especially when it comes from sources that have,
an agenda or a bias.
Bias, right?
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out to me about Coleman's book was just how much he relies on...
Anecdotal evidence.
Yeah,
and interpretations that fit his narrative.
Right, he presents...
It's a very selective and often sensationalized
view of Freemasonry. It's important to acknowledge that any large organization...
Of course.
Could have its problems.
They could have people who...
Right, or people who...
Use
their power, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem fair.
It's not...
To paint this entire group...
You can't paint them all with the same brush.
Such a broad brush.
No.
It's like judging a book by its cover.
Exactly.
Or judging an entire society.
Based on what one...
Critical author
has to say.
We have to be careful.
Right. We have to be careful.
About the information we consume.
Yeah.
Especially with these controversial topics.
Right.
Look beyond the headlines. Seek out multiple perspectives.
Let's say multiple perspectives.
Examine the evidence.
Yeah.
Form your own conclusions.
Yeah.
Based on a balanced assessment.
So we've explored a lot.
We have.
About Freemasonry.
Its history.
Yeah.
The rituals, the symbolism.
The controversy.
All the controversy.
That's a big takeaway.
That's a great question.
For our listener.
I think the key takeaway is truth is complicated.
It is.
It's multi-layered.
It is.
Freemasonry, like anything else people do, has its contradictions.
It does.
It's good and bad moments.
It's moments of brilliance,
It's not this one big thing.
Right.
It's diverse and evolving.
It's a reminder.
It is.
To approach every subject.
Especially the mysterious ones.
Like
Freemasonry.
With curiosity. But also a critical eye.
A critical eye, exactly.
If you're as fascinated by this as I am.
I hope so.
There's a whole world of information out there.
There is.
Scholarly articles.
Historical accounts.
Personal testimonies.
It's all out there.
Just
remember. Approach those resources with a discerning mind.
Right.
Question your assumptions.
Form
your own conclusions. Based on the evidence.
Word of Freemasonry, I mean...
It's fascinating. The symbols, the legacy.
It gives us this glimpse
into human nature. Our need to belong. Our fascination with the unknown.
What secrets will you uncover?
That's for you to decide when